Hello everyone. Let's see the next module, which is research technique. Under this, the first we'll learn deciding what information you need. In this lesson, we'll be covering up user research user research method, what do people need, user interviews, surveys and questionnaires, dairy status, dairy study, what do people want, choosing appropriate research methodology, and quality research and quantitative approaches. So let's see one by one in detail. First, we'll see how to choose a user research method. The most important question to ask yourself before deciding on what research methods to use is, what do I want to know? How do you go about answering this question? You should start by asking yourself why you want to learn that thing. Identify what you already know about your user and what you know, what you don't know about them. What are your knowledges gap, for example, of useful questions that you may or may not already know the answers to. So, having a set of questions could give a good data while doing a research. Like, here are some questions which you can go through. Like first it says, who are the users? Then, what are their behaviors, goals, motivations and needs? What assumptions have you made about them? How do they currently use your product? What other products do they use? They do they have problems with their workflow. Do they like using your product or not? So this is all what you need to decide before collecting the data or the information. Once you know that you are trying to learn, you can start thinking about how to learn it. One way to break down the methods suggested by Christine Rohrer is on 2x attitudinal versus behavior studies and qualitative versus quantitative studies. In attitude in attitudinal studies, you are trying to find out what people say about a subject, while in behavior studies, you are analyzing what people are actually doing. Qualitative methods tend to be stronger for answering why types of questions, while quantitative methods do a better job of answering questions like how many and how much. If you see on a screen, it shows that behavior, attitude, qualitative and quantitative. In behavior, it comes what people do, then why and how to fix. Qualitative says that. In attitudinal, what people say, how many and how much will be in quantitative. For example, if you are asking the question, how many users give up partway through your sign up process, then you might want to consider a more quantitative or behavior study. Farmer Sharon has offered a different framework for categorizing research questions, which I have found very useful. He suggested that there are broadly three types of questions that UX research is helpful for answering. The three questions are: what do people need? What do people want? Can they use it? You need to understand what your product should be doing. You need to understand what your product should be doing, the needs and wants of users, before worrying about whether the product is doing that thing correctly, which is usability. A quick aside: before starting any user research project, it's important to keep a couple of things in mind. In general, it's better to observe what user needs or wants rather than asking them directly. Choosing the right methodology only gets you part of the way there, as user research is a skill that takes practice. Let's see, what do people need? Contextual inquiries, also called observation or a site visit. Contextual inquiry involves studying people as they go about their everyday lives or tasks. If you are performing a contextual inquiry study on engineers who produce intelligent piping and instrumentation diagrams, you could go to their office and watch an engineer go about their job. Have them show you how they do things. Ask them questions such as, how do you do that? Or can you show me how you did that? To try to dig more deeply into how they are accomplishing their tasks. Next, our interview. In user interviews, you will typically meet with user one at a time and ask them questions relevant to your project. Usually, this is done quite early in the process, and it can be useful for reviewing your product goals. You need to practice to get good at interviewing users. Questions often have to be asked in the right way to get good response. You have to know when to follow up and dig in to an answer. And you have to be able to listen well. You should definitely have an interview protocol or script prepared beforehand. So in user interview, this should happen at the start of the process. To have a good interview, you need to prepare your set of questions on planning itself. So once your questions are set, then you should, with a polite and with a good behavior, or by knowing your user nature or the situation, you need to go on putting down the questions. Once you get all the answers, you are ready to set to go for next step. So to have a good interview, have a good time and prepare, then execute it. Next, a surveys and questionnaires. Surveys and questionnaires can provide you with some answers similar to what you had get from user interviews. The downside is that you don't have the ability to dive more deeply into those answers, as there's no direct interaction with the users. In surveys, we definitely don't do face-to-face interviews, or face-to-face we don't ask the questions. For survey, you need to pick out any one platform, as we had learned into the survey topic, that put down the questions with the answers and put them into your social networks or into your friend circles or to the user where he is going to give the survey with the some answers. So the user can give the survey. Once it is done, you can identify the result of a survey. On the plus side, they allow you to get a large volume of response, which can open up the opportunity for more quantitative analysis. Next is a dairy study. A dairy study can be used to see what users do and how they interact with your product. Over a long time frame, dairy studies can often be used as a follow-up to a contextual inquiry or an interview to get some additional information for some of the more engaged and informative user that you encountered. In some case, you may ask user to take photos, scrapbook, or other similar activities. You have to make sure that you give the user good instruction so that they are clear on what they should be doing and follow up with them a certain intervals to try to keep them engaged. Next, we'll see what do people want. A-B testing. In A/B testing, we create two variations of an element of your product, such as a registration form. The variation should be represented by anything from a simple paper prototype to a live website. You then define a metric that will measure the success of each variation that you have created. For example, you could measure the bonus rate or the NPS of a landing page. Next, you run an experiment with users where one group sees version A and another group sees version B. Using the metric you defined, you will measure which version was more successful. That's the one of the user want. You can do this process with more than just two variations, in which case it's called multivariate testing. Next, you can use A/B testing to examine a wide variety of things such as CTA, wordings, size, color, placement, what images you are using, the amount of text on a page, layout and style, typography, product description. A/B testing is an excellent and powerful user research tool. There's a lot of knowns to do and A/B testing collects correctly. So make sure you are designing your study appropriate and that you will brush up on concepts like statistical significance so you know when to stop the study. Let's see what's next. Now we'll see rapid prototyping. The idea behind rapid prototyping is to get your design in front of your user early and often. This is done interactively in a three easy steps process. One, which is prototype, and create interactive mockup of your interface. Then a review. Test the prototype with user. 3. Refine, make adjustment based on a feedback. So in the prototype, there are again three steps: a prototype, review, and refine, which are like on the basis of this result, on the basis of feedback. If you follow the loop of prototype, review, refine, then the final output comes as a prototyping, where a user can see the entire design before getting its coding. Let's see what's next. Next is focus groups. When done correctly, focus group can uncover lot of very useful information. One of the most interesting results can be discovering a customer language that can help you to understand and describe similar experience that your user shared. Having a group of users together can also help them to jog memories and ideas in each other that they may not have otherwise remembered. Next is usability test. According to the Nelson Norman group, if you do only one type of user research on your project, it should be qualitative usability testing. In usability testing, you recruit some users, come up with a list of tasks for the users to accomplish, and set them loose on your system or prototype. You can do this formally. Create a screen, schedule participants, have them come up into your lab, record the session, etc. or with Gruyere usability tacticals. You should test with appropriate 5 users, as beyond that you will start to see diminishing returns. At the conclusion of a usability test, you will often find that parts of your design work, but that user uncovered problems that you should never have through of, and a lot of things needs to be tweaked or reworked. This is why it's so important to test your design with a real people or a user. Next, which is a card sorting. Card sorting is a technique that can help a lot more your information architecture. Write down the major features of topics for your system on cards. Then recruit some user and ask them to organize the cards into category wise. That makes sense to them. You can do open sorting where participants put the card into group and then name the groups themselves, or closed card sorting where you give them defined category to sort the cards into. The results of a card sorting study can help you to decide the structure of your website, how to label your menu, how to group your content, and so on. In card sorting, it can be done in person with index card, or using an online tool such as Optimal Sort. If you are doing the study in person, the most difficult part will likely be analyzing the results, particularly if you have recruited a large number of participants. Then it comes the next is tree testing. In tree testing, is another research technique that will help you to access the information architecture of your product. It can, and likely should, be used only with the card sort. Tree testing helps you to answer questions like: can people easily find information on your website? Do your menu or category names make sense to your user? Is information categorized in a way that user accept? In a tree test, user navigate the site to complete task. Example, buy a sweatshirt. Using only link, the user interface is stripped away entirely. If through previous research you have found that users are not reaching an important page on your website, a tree test can help you to determine if the issue is caused by a problem with your information architecture or by something to do with your UI. Choosing appropriate research methodologies. Your research will dedicate the kind of research methodologies you use to underpin your work and methods you use in order to collect data. If you wish to collect quantitative data, you are probably measuring variables and verifying existing theories or hypotheses or questioning them. Data is often used to generate new hypotheses based on the results of data collected about different variables. One's colleagues are often much happier about the ability to verify quantitative data, as many people feel safe only with number of statistics. Qualitative research. This is carried out when we wish to understand meanings, look at, describe, and understand experience, ideas, beliefs, and values, intangibles such as this example. As area of study that could benefit from qualitative research could be that of students' learning style and approaches to study, which are decided and understood subjectively by students. Quantitative approaches. There are four main types of quantitative research designs: descriptive, correlations, quasi-experimental, and experimental. The difference between the four types primarily relates to the degree the researcher designed for control of the variables in the experiment. Following is a brief description of each type of quantitative research design as well as chart comparison and concentrating the approaches. Descriptive design seeks to describe the current status of a variable or phenomenon. The researcher does not begin with a hypothesis but typically develops one after the data is collected. Data collection is mostly observational in nature. A correlational design explores the relationship between variables using statistical analysis. However, it does not look for cause and effects and therefore is almost mostly observational in terms of data collection. A quasi-experimental design, often referred to a causal comparative, seeks to establish a cause-effect relationship between two or more variables. The researcher does not assign groups and does not manipulate the independent variable. Control groups are identified and explored to the variable. Results are compared with results for group not explored to the variable. Experimental designs, often called true experimentation, use the scientific method to establish cause-effect relationship among a group of variables in a research study. Researchers make an effort to control for all the variables except the one being manipulated. The effects are the effects of the independent variables on the dependent variables are collected and analyzed for a relationship. Using quantitative and qualitative research method together. This is a common approach and help you to tangibly, that is, to back up one set of findings from one method of data collection underpinned by one methodology with another very different method underpinned by another methodology. For example, you might give out a questionnaire, normally quantitative, to gather statistically data about responses, and then back this up and research in more depth by interviewing normal qualitative. Select members of your questionnaire example. So here we are done with Here we have completed our topic, our lesson, deciding what information we need while research or while gathering information. So I hope everyone enjoyed the lesson with the good patience. So if any doubts, you can go through once again and you can clear it out. So thank you for your patience and thanks for taking this lesson. Thank you.